All right. And we're live. Okay. How's it going, everybody? Deadman Stone Podcast. Your host, Mr. Deadman. Co-host, Becky.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
We are.
And then we also have Stanley.
Yay.
Stanley Wiater. Did I say your last name right?
Wiater. You're getting there.
Wiater.
Think of a small otter.
Like a small
Think
otter.
of a small furry animal.
Okay, I can do
You
that.
know that.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just horrible with names. I'm
I'm
sorry.
so excited.
What, that I got close? Or we have Stanley
No.
here?
That we have Stanley here.
Yeah, man, this guy's a legend. I mean, shit.
He is.
What he's held as the top horror journalist of North America. Wow.
Oh yeah. And Dark Dreamers.
Oh yeah.
That's his.
Man.
So cool.
Stanley, you've talked to a lot of very interesting people.
Yes, I have. I'm happy to say that. Very lucky in my career.
Man, well, we're gonna touch on that. We're gonna get into that. First, we got some things we got to take care of real fast. Stanley, do you know what the deep web is?
Is that the same as the dark web, I assume?
Deep web, dark web, it's about the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I
I
received.
don't know what it is.
It's a top secret internet. It's like internet behind the internet. It's like behind the curtain. It's like it's like what you see on the surface, like Google and all that. It's just it's safe areas, I guess. I mean, that's the way I think of it. Like you can access some
Okay.
questionable things. You can go into territories you don't want to go into. You know, things that hide in the shadows.
Yeah, no.
So that's where I am now, in the deep web at Deadman Tomb. Is that what you're trying to warn me about?
Well, what I'm getting here is I wish, but you know, the darkest corner of the internet, not so much. But I received a package. I received two packages actually. I've turned on the cam, and I apologize for the quality.
Were either one of them ticking?
No, this envelope I'm holding up to the
Thank
camera right
goodness.
now, for those who can see. Yeah, of course I blacked out my address, but as you can tell, there's some Korean. There's Korean text on top. I received that today. I don't speak Korean.
Is that your mail? Is that your mail order girlfriend?
I mean, I would hope she'll come in a bigger package than that. I mean,
Well, you have to blow her up, silly.
well, this one might be it. This one right here, this box. We got a box right here. And it's labeled Deep Web. So let me open this box real fast. And this is, I mean, I received this today on my doorstep.
That's frightening.
I know, right? It could be anything inside.
Did it come through the mail,
It did.
or was it special delivery?
Someone dropped it. It could have been a kid. It could have been a mailman. It could have been Stanley. It could have been anyone.
I doubt Stanley sent you anything from Korea.
Exactly. It's possible. China, maybe.
Maybe it's
Probably
like,
not Korea.
could it be like Kim Jong-un? Could it be
Oh,
him?
for God's sake.
I mean,
Open it.
okay. I'm opening
Open it. Open it.
What, do you want me to open the Korean package first or the big one? Because okay.
It doesn't matter. Just open one of them. I want to know what's in it.
Okay. It's a paper. It's a piece of paper. And it says,
Well, what does it say?
it says 1 hour left. It says 1 hour left, and it has a sad face, a frowny face with a gun to its head. Is this a message? What the hell is this? What the hell is this?
Who have you? Oh my lord!
Look at this.
Is that from Nicholas?
Nicholas Passion.
You done ticked him off.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Oh shit!
I
might
just
only
tell
have
you, you don't listen to me.
Becky, does it mean I only have an hour left to live? I mean, is that what
Well, I
that's saying?
certainly hope not. I don't know. That sounds like it. It's scary.
Mr. Wiater.
Is your mask bulletproof?
You got it.
I got it that time. I got to get it right because my days are numbered. Actually, my minutes are 60. Oh, shit. It even woke up my son. Hold on one moment. I got to take care of business. Oh, shit. Oh, no. It might be true. I might release a demon. Mr. Wiater, you got to look up Deep Box, Dark Mystery Box, or, on YouTube. This stuff is serious business. So in the box, in the big one, I have a bloody knife. Looks like a crime scene evidence. So that's weird. I don't know why I'm touching that. There's fingerprints all over it. Also in the box, I have booty ease. Booty ease. I have a porn.
What is that?
I don't know, Becky. Do you know what booty ease is?
Well, no. If I did, I wouldn't ask you.
It looks like it's lotion. It's lotion, and it says flavored numbing
for your
gel.
butt.
I would imagine so. I would imagine so.
Uh-oh.
I think so. And then we have a DVD over here. I can't show it.
Is it a how-to guide?
Kind of a very adult how-to guide for mom and dad. I can't show it. YouTube would shut us down if I were to show it. But let's just say it's
let's don't.
Nuns with buns. Nuns with buns. Okay. I got a bag of Coke. I got a bag of Coke right here. I think that's Coke. I mean, it's either Coke or Anthrax. Let's see.
Yeah, I wouldn't open that once after the smiley face with the gun or the frowny face with the gun.
Well, let's find out. Find out.
No.
There's only one way to find out.
Give it to the dog.
Oh shit. Oh. I'm sorry. Oh man. So, Mr.
I told you not to do that.
Hey, Mr. Wiater. Mr. Wiater?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. This box, Becky, the weirdest thing about this box, I think, is the knife. The knife with blood on it, and there's cameras in here. There's cameras in this box. And,
put the box down and step away.
I'm telling you, man, this is crazy stuff. Who dropped this?
Don't know. I'm telling you, it had to have been Nicholas.
Probably. Mr. Wiater, let me tell you something. There's YouTube videos out there where these kids are opening up these mystery boxes and strange things are coming out, like ghosts and demons and stuff. So I don't know. Anyway.
Then why did you open the box?
Because I like to take one for the team, so to speak. All right.
Yeah, well, this end of the team would not have opened it.
All right. Well, now that we got that out of the way, Mr. Wiater, top horror journalist in North America, how does that feel?
Up until the last 15 minutes, it felt pretty damn good.
Oh, man. No, but seriously, though, I mean, like, how did you get there?
Well, it was a very small pond, and somebody had to be a big fish in it. Well, when I started out in the late 70s, I was an entertainment reporter for a major newspaper in Massachusetts. And they started having World Fantasy Conventions and World Horror Conventions. And I convinced my editor to let me go down and interview these struggling unknown writers like Stephen King and Peter Straub and Ramsey Campbell and George Romero, who were showing up at these conventions. And they weren't like horror conventions are now. These conventions were basically literary get-togethers where writers and filmmakers would be on panels to discuss their careers. So that's where I got my start, by first publishing it in the newspapers, and then just at that same time in the early 80s, Fangoria magazine came on the scene, and I started reselling my interviews to Fangoria magazine.
Oh, wow. Man, I mean, you got there right at a good moment, like right when it was beginning. So you got to speak with these great minds, like in their early stages. Oh, man, that's incredible.
He got to go to their houses and sit and actually, talk to them and really get to know them, and that's what's so incredible and cool.
Man.
That's true. Later on, when we did the TV series, I managed to get a television series produced in Canada called Dark Dreamers, and that's still available on DVD through Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and even Netflix. You could rent the DVDs. But Becky is right. Part of the format for the show was to go to Harlan Ellison's house, or to go to Wes Craven's home, or to go to Stephen King's office and interview people right then and there for the show.
Man, and that
would be so amazing.
That method is so much more intimate, because you're right there with the person in their home, in their setting, in their environment. Oh man, I wish it's possible to really, I guess it would be possible for this podcast in the future to actually go out to people's homes, whatever, to interview them that way, take the setup with us. But that's interesting, man. I mean,
that would be cool.
So, like, what are your thoughts as far as how journalism is now, especially for horror? Like, has it changed a lot?
Well, for better or worse, there are fewer superstars out there. I mean, Stephen King is obviously still producing at a manic rate, but most of the major horror writers from the 80s and 90s and the 2000s have either retired or semi-retired, and are producing a lot less. And unfortunately, except for Stephen King, the general public doesn't have any new superstars to take into their heart and say this is the next big thing. And one of the few writers who I think would be considered one of the new generation's next big things is Joe Hill. And of course, I think the people listening to this podcast know that Joe Hill's last name is King. He's one of Stephen King's sons, and he's a wonderful storyteller and horror writer. So the maggots don't fall far from the tree, as it were.
Right.
Yeah. Man, that kind of paints a bleak picture, though, right? Because we need more superstars out there. I mean, I could think of a few indie horror writers that definitely have potential. It's just they just need to get the notice.
But with Amazon, there's it's a double-edged sword. A lot of people are now able to self-publish, and as you call them, indie publish. And there are places to go. You have Facebook to advertise, and a slew of different places we all know to advertise your book. But now there's so many, how should I put it, small voices out there screaming for attention. There's really not one to break away from the pack. And I do have to wonder in the back of my mind, in terms of the so-called mainstream publishers or major publishers, if Joe Hill wasn't Joe Hill King, if he would have gotten the major push that he got from day one from the major publishers. When you read a Joe Hill novel or collection, it's not published by Dark Winds Press. It's published by Random House or Simon and Schuster. So it's always been rough to get your voices heard. But back in the 80s and 90s, publishers, because of Stephen King and Peter Straub and Clive Barker, they were dying to get product, if I may use that word. And just about anybody could be published by a major publisher, even if there was a paperback original. That's how Clive Barker got started with Books of Blood as a paperback original. It's a weird situation. I mean, there's thousands of new books that you can go through on Amazon when you type in horror, but there's few new superstars that at least I'm aware of have broken out of the pack, so to speak.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And
it's kind of role reversed, isn't it? Than what it was. I mean, the big publishers used to beg for writers and books, and now it's anybody can publish.
Yeah, and now the writers are begging for the top publishers to take them.
Right.
Which is the other thing too that's interesting about that is that you hear about these success stories about some self-published author who not only makes it but makes it big with like a movie deal and all this stuff, because it's like the main because the big publishers, they see someone who could do the marketing on their own and could do the hustle, could do all that, and they're like, you have a product that sells, let's make a deal, let's work.
Yeah, The Martian, as you know, the best-selling novel, The Martian, by, I believe his name is Andrew Weir, was first self-published. And then after it became a success on the internet through his blog, he was publishing chapters one at a time on his blog. The major publishers in New York were banging his door down, saying, please, we really want to publish this. And then once it was published by a mainstream publisher, then Hollywood came knocking and said, please, can we make a movie out of this book? And then now, of course, that author is set for life because of self-publishing his own book.
Yeah.
And when you think of literally thousands of other writers trying to go down that route, give me another example of someone else who's done it.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, there's of course the 50 Shades of Grey author. I mean, her stuff was start off as like fan fiction. I mean, she's not an example of quality writing, but she's an example of making it, so to speak.
Self-made author. Yeah, self-made success.
Hey, Becky.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna have to let my dogs out right now. They're whining. I'm stepping away for a minute.
Okay.
But you got it. One moment.
Oh yeah, we got it. So how long? You've been doing this for a long time, and so how many interviews do you think that you've done over the course of all these years?
I did it for about 40 years.
Wow.
A lot of my interviews were repeats. I would say only, the joke is, to me, it doesn't seem like a lot. I've done a couple hundred interviews, maybe 250 interviews in my career. But a lot of them were repeats. I would go back to Clive Barker, and I would go back to Stephen King, and go back to Peter Straub. And that was part of the relationship I had with them when I got to do the television interviews, was that they had known me literally for years and been interviewed by me 4 or 5 times. So the comfort zone on their part was really high. They knew I was a friend. They knew I was also a published horror author, because in various anthologies, I would be on the same table of contents page as a Clive Barker or a Ray Bradbury or Stephen King. So I had all these what I would think of as unique advantages to going in and trying to do the best interviews. And I have yet to meet someone who says, well, John X or Jane X has done a lot better interviews with these folks than you have. I'm proud to say I like to think mine are the definitive interviews. And when you go to some authors' websites, when they list their definitive interview or use one interview as an example of someone who got it right, it's usually my interview.
Mm-hmm. I've listened to and read a lot of your interviews, and I learned a lot of, you know, what kind of questions I should ask and how I should ask them for, you know, my blog. And so it was, I agree with you that, you know, if I'm gonna learn from somebody on how to do mine better, I will learn from the best. And so that's what I am doing. So
Yes.
in my world, you definitely are the best. And it just it just blows my mind. I can't. I mean, I know that I've done some, you know, some really great interviews with some really great authors, and you know, and I consider myself very lucky. And I know you know, consider yourself lucky to have met and done these interviews with them too. But it always just amazes me of, you know, how down to earth, and you know, the fact that they like that you treated them just like, you know, a friend that you know you'd known for 10 years, that you met walk. um
You there?
my first interview was with Graham Masterson, and I had no clue how big of a name he was until a friend of mine said, "Who are you doing your interview with?" And I told them, and they were like, "Oh, holy crap!" And I'm like, "What?" And they were like, "Look him up online." And so I
Yeah.
did, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," you know, I had no clue. And so then, you know, the next time I talked to him, I was like, I'm really sorry, you know, I didn't realize that, you know, you had such a library and you know, were such a well-known writer." And he was like, "No, that's one thing that I really, really loved is, you know, when I was talking to you, it was just like I was just, you know, another person. I was your friend. You know, it wasn't a, oh, you're wonderful and, you know, all that stuff."
Yeah, it was
He really liked that.
conversation. Yeah, between peers. Yeah, that's
Right.
how I felt. When people say, "Were you starstruck?" I said, "No, I'm a working writer, and they're working writers. You know, there's
Exactly.
no magic fairy dust to make a story or a novel or a script to appear. They know it, and I know it."
Right.
And Graham, it's funny you mentioned Graham Masterson. He's in my book collection, Dark Dreamers: Conversations with the Masters of Horror. And I haven't looked at his website lately, but I know for years he used that interview on his website as
Yes.
as a definitive interview with him.
Yes.
So yeah, but he's huge. But again, it's like uh, if unless you read, you're a mainstream reader, let's call it that in quotes. When you say horror, unless you say Stephen King, people don't know what horror is, and it's an immense amount of people on this side of the pond and in Europe who have made incredible careers by writing just horror for their entire lives.
You're right. And until I got my Kindle and accidentally fell into the indie world, I had no clue who some of these people were. And I've read some of the best books and, you know, short stories, you know, imaginable. I mean, that just blew most anything mainstream out of the water. And it just, I was like, where in the world did this whole world come from? You know, why didn't I know about this?
And that didn't exist 20 years ago. So it's a it's a strange world of publishing that we're in. No matter what the genre of you have the quote unquote mainstream publishers on the one hand, and the indie publishers on the right, or self publishers, and they're all, as David Morrell was told me. He says, they're all singing in the choir and hoping
Right.
that one of them will break through and be selected to be the lead singer.
Mm-hmm.
and be distinctive. To me, it's got to be incredibly hard to be discovered, quote unquote, by a mainstream publisher, and on the other hand, it's easier than ever to publish a book. But once you publish the book, I have been told time and again, writing the book is the easiest part of it, and the hardest part is the other 90% of your sweat goes towards promoting and marketing your book.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah. And that's singing in the choir, man. Singing to the choir. That's a good way to put it. Especially here in the indie scene, in this day and age, it's with the technology. It's easy. You think it's easier to reach people in a way. It kind of is, but since so many people are doing it, the competition is immense. It's like, who's going to be singing the loudest? I mean, your stuff really has to shine one way or the other. Maybe you're a good salesman. Maybe you can market maybe you're like crap, but maybe you're really good at marketing and you know how to angle it. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, there are books out there on Amazon which didn't exist before on how to write horror. There's got to be 6 or 7 books out there, how to write horror, how to write scary scenes, how to write scary short stories. And it's always been my belief that you can't really teach horror. It's something that's born within you.
Yeah.
I was a part of a book published by the Horror Writers of America, Horror Writers Association, called How to Write Horror. And it was an advice book from different famous writers. But even they agree, you have to be born to want to be in that genre and associated with that genre, because once you're in it, so to speak, it's really going to be there with you for your career for the rest of your life. I know very few people who said, well, I'm just going to write some horror, make some money, and then move on to another genre. The people who do this, it's like the color of their blood. What color is your blood? My blood's the ink, and it says horror.
Mm-hmm.
Now
I agree with that.
Now we have a question in the chat, and because we have a question in the chat, and I like this question, I'm gonna open up the shot cam. So I'll take a shot of some whiskey over here. But the question is, it's from Bo. What is your interview process?
Okay, it's pretty simple. They're pretty set rules that I've always gone by, and this is from learning journalism in college. And as I mentioned earlier, starting out as an entertainment reporter and interviewing people who, worked in the circus or were magicians or whatever before I was able to specialize in horror. I would simply get in touch with, the person's agent to say, who I was and give a short bio of myself and what my interests are and why I wanted to interview that person. Or if I knew the person directly, I would write to them directly and, again, tell them a little about myself. And then if I could do the interview in person at a convention or a writers' conference, that would be my first choice. If they couldn't do it, my second choice would be do it by phone. And of course, to do it by phone, you have to have a few gadgets, and that's basically the hookup to the phone, which allows you to tape the phone call into a tape recorder.
Yeah.
And I've used various tape recorders over the years with smaller and smaller cassette tapes. And at one point, I had a transcription machine where you could speed up or slow down the playback of the tape. And then I would print out or write out the entire interview. Then I would go back and edit the interview to whatever the publisher was, the magazine would say, we need a 3,000-word interview with so-and-so. And I would edit it down to that. And then I would mail it to the person I interviewed and ask them, would you like to review it? And a lot of people, because of my reputation, would say, no, thank you, Stanley. We trust you. We don't need to review it. So whatever the case was, if they needed to review it, that was fine. Like Dean Koontz wanted to review it. So, I have in my archives my interviews with Dean Koontz, with him editing it by hand, his interviews, and in one case, he actually retyped the entire interview to his own satisfaction.
Oh wow!
So I would make sure that there it was always a positive interview. I was never looking for skeletons in anyone's closets.
Yeah.
Right.
It was always about the craft. I was never interested in saying, well, you're on your third marriage, or
Yeah.
there are rumors that you drink a lot. None of that horse shit. I would just simply say, I'm here to promote you, to put you in a good light, to respect the work you do, and to respect you as an individual. And I have found that if you follow those simple rules, you can get some pretty famous people to agree to be interviewed by you.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a good approach. Just talk about the work, talk about the craft. Don't worry about the drama and the other stuff. And man, that's old school. Like, you've been doing this for so long. I mean, technology has changed through the work that you do. I mean, oh man. And it's just the other question I have with that is, what about like engaging with the people that you're interviewing? Like, what's your process with that? I mean, you just start like you have a set of questions in mind, or you just kind of go with the flow, or you just keep it kind of open like a conversation?
I would always have questions in mind. I would obviously never sit there and take out the set of questions and go through it that drawing. I always try to be in a quiet place, a hotel room, or even the corner of a bar. Just someplace where it's intimate enough so it's not going to mess up the taping session,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's a place where the person I'm interviewing is going to be comfortable. And that's why, as I mentioned before, when I had the chance to go to Wes Craven's home, that was the perfect place to interview Wes Craven. But I would basically try to read all the interviews I could about that person. I mean, if you're working with Stephen King, there's literally books of interviews with Stephen King, and there's books of interviews with Clive Barker. So that would be another part of my research. I would, of course, try to read as much as I could by that author, or see as many films as I could of that filmmaker. But for me, the key thing was reading the interviews, because the last thing you want to do is see their eyes glaze over and then start to give you robotic answers that they've done for the last 10 interviews with people. I would always set myself a goal that I would ask at least one question that they'd never been asked before.
Oh, that's a good thing to strive for.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Whew.
So do you have, of all the people that you've interviewed, do you have a favorite interview that you've done?
No, so many of them were pleasurable, and I'm not going to say there were any ones that weren't pleasurable, because obviously right. I picked and chose myself the people I wanted to interview. But, some of the ones that appear on the Dark Dreamers TV series, the one with Harlan Ellison, I've been told is a wonderful interview. The one with Peter Straub, the one with Jack Ketchum.
I love that one.
The one with Larry Cohen, talking about his film career and what a guerrilla filmmaker he was in the 70s, and not being able to afford permits to shoot on the streets of New York. And it didn't matter to him. He would just go out and shoot and pretend he was a news crew.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
It's fascinating people to begin with. And no favorites, Becky. Just pleasure. Try to, there was always something pleasurable at the end of the experience.
I love that. Yeah.
It's hard to pick a favorite when you talk to, I mean, those influential minds that you're choosing to talk to. I mean, they're great. They're great names to talk to. Oh man.
Yeah, it's unbelievable the people that he's interviewed. It just, I mean, gosh.
Yeah, yeah. I have to ask about the interview. I mean, so I know you can't pick a favorite. Which one is Oh, I guess like which one was like the most? I guess relaxed. Who's the most? Yeah, we'll go with that. Who's the most relaxed?
Oh gosh. Now you put me on the spot.
They all were with him. I mean,
Yeah, that was the whole point of making. That was the whole point of going to their house or their office and saying, "Well, this is the fifth time I've interviewed you," and
right.
you know, to have lunch with them or dinner with them or have a drink with them and just have the tape record going. The point of and Becky, you've been there yourself, is that you're trying not to make it a newspaper interview.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
trying to make it a profile. Even though in print it comes out as a Q&A, what you're really trying to have is a simple conversation with one of your peers. Now, it may be some giant in the field like Graham Masterton, but he doesn't want you, kissing his feet, and you don't want to kiss his feet, even if you've read every book he's ever published. The thing is to have a mutual respect situation going on, not a fan to a giant, but a working writer to a working writer or filmmaker.
That's very important. Right. That's good advice. And as someone who has talked to a lot of guests and kind of I don't really consider this really an interview. It's more like a conversation, but I guess you can kind of call it an interview. But it's different though. I don't know. It feels more relaxed. It feels more just.
See, but that was the whole point of what you just said is was his point was it's not an interview. You're just sitting and talking to a fellow writer or a fellow publisher or someone that you find interesting and that you want to learn more about. And that's why on my blog my interviews are called Getting Personal With, and then whoever the author is, because I want people to know and realize and connect with them that they're more than just pages in a book and words in a book. They're people, and when you read stuff like that and connect with them, it makes what they write more personal to you. And I don't know, for me it just is a whole nother level of the reading experience and what I get out of reading and knowing these people.
That makes sense.
Yeah, going behind the scenes. Yeah, you're going behind the scenes by going right to the source, right to the creator of that novel or that work of art or that film. And there's always something that there to discover that the public didn't know about or you didn't know about. I mean, I try to walk away from every interview saying I've been educated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to bet that with all the guests you've had, I'm sure, and as much as you like to stay focused on their craft, I'm sure there's been times where the conversation between you and the guests have gone to, I don't know, personal matters. Just, I mean, that happens though, right? I mean, this is a live show. What happens. But when it's recorded, I mean, you can go back and kind of pick and choose what you kind of put on the paper. Oh man,
absolutely. I mean, when I would do an interview, I would, let's say I would interview someone for an hour or 2 hours, because of word length in the magazine, you could only use 20% of it or 30% of it, and I would pick and choose that with the author's permission, the interviewee that I spoke with, and I have all the tapes. I have an archive. If you go to Ken Lopez Books, he's trying to sell my archive, to a major university, and it has like 220, 250 tapes, and a lot of those tapes have never been heard in terms of the personal stuff or the informal stuff that was left on the cutting room floor, so to speak. And then when I did the TV series, we unfortunately ran out of money before we could edit the third season. But there are tapes there with interviews of Stuart Gordon and Mick Garris and John Carl Buechler, the makeup artist, and a lot more people than actually appeared on the show. So we had to get each episode down to 23 minutes, and that's out of 2 hours of taping. So you can imagine. Yeah. There's another example of 75 minutes that's never been seen.
Wow, man.
Oh, can I please come live in your archives? Please, please, please.
Well, like I said,
promise to be good.
Go check it out at Ken Lopez Books. He's a Ken Lopez bookseller, and it goes on for pages and pages and pages. We were just talking about it today. I'm actually having a book auction on the 30th of this month to sell my reference library and my paperback library, because my wife and I have downsized over the years, and I just basically know that material I'm not going to need it again, because this is all pre-internet that I bought those books, and I'm never going to read them again. So we're having an auction. So if you go to newenglandbookauctions.com, you'll see that being promoted. They even took out a Facebook page, and they also made a YouTube video of the highlights of that collection. So,
wow. I would be even more book poor.
Yeah. But I used to have, thousands of books, and now I'm just down to a few measly 100 books over the years, just because I still read a book a week, but there's only so much room you can have in an apartment building versus a 3-bedroom house, which is what I had many years ago.
Right. Now, I know that I've done a couple of interviews where I totally just fangirled and, flipped out that I got to do an interview with him. Have you ever been starstruck with any of the ones that you've interviewed?
Not really, because, they're just working writers. As I said, I had the experience of being a working reporter for several years, and interviewing celebrities before meeting, and by that I mean film celebrities and musicians and things like that.
Right.
Before I was able to specialize in the horror field, and having published horror myself, horror short stories, there was like nobody that blew my mind. I mean, visiting with Stephen King, of course, going to his house and going to his office. I mean, that's like, I don't know what to compare it to. That's I could call it.
That's top of the mountain.
Yeah,
that's
pretty
top
high
of the
there.
mountain. Yeah.
Not interviewing Stephen King, because we've been friends since the late 70s. But it was just the idea to go to his house and go to his office and say, this is what a couple $100 million can buy you if you want to buy this. I think I've mentioned to you before, Becky, that when I visited Clive Barker at his home in Beverly Hills, he actually has 2 mansions side by side, and he told me that one mansion he lives in, and the other mansion is where he does his work in.
Wow!
So he can separate. So he doesn't, he's not working and sleeping and eating his craft 24/7. He's actually gets to divide his time, even though all he's doing is walking across the street.
Wow.
I know, and it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So I have a mansion here, and I have a mansion over there. No, I wish.
How cool would that be, though? I mean,
that would be amazing. But
yeah.
what I'm really enjoying from this, though, with the old school style of interview, I guess I could do that sort of style. I know, Becky, you do that, where you have that long form, you get a lot of information, but you pick and choose what you use. It's kind of like you have the secrets. I mean, you have stuff you don't want to release necessarily, unless you want to be all like tabloid and sensational.
Yeah, no.
Exactly.
So you're trusted like a vault.
But people, right, and people know when they can trust you and when they can't too. I mean, it's just like you said something, Stanley, earlier about you've always offered to let them to see your interview or whatever before it was published, and some of them have said, no, that's okay. I know you, I trust you, and I do the same thing. I always have. I don't know why. I just did, because to me, some of the questions are kind of that I ask are kind of personal, and I just want to make sure that I'm not putting too much of them out there, that they're not comfortable with it. And I also do that with my book reviews. When I write a book review, I'll always ask the author, would you like to see it first? And I bet probably 95% of them are like, no, I trust you. And so it was funny when you said that resonated with me. And so I was like, yeah, I hear that a lot too. And that's really cool.
Yeah, I did quite a few book reviews for Fangoria back in the day, and I had a simple policy. I also did reviews for Video Watchdog, but my simple policy was I wouldn't do negative reviews, and the simple reason was what did that accomplish? What good did it accomplish? I would get so many inches of space in that issue, and to me it was like a waste of my time and the reader's time to say, here's a new book by Jane X. It sucks. Don't read it. It's not worthwhile. And so all I've accomplished is to waste the reader's time and my time by reading the book. Why should I inflict more pain? And of course, I never saw any sense in bad mouthing one of my peers. They could have had just a rotten time with writing that particular book. They may have written 10 wonderful books beforehand, and that particular book they were going through a divorce or some traumatic event in their life. There could be 100 reasons the book was lousy. But again, I would never write a totally negative review, because I always thought my job is to promote authors. My job is not to be a scholar and a critic to tear things apart page by page, word by word. I'm out there to say, I discovered Jack Ketchum when I reviewed his book Off Season for Fangoria. There were literally only 2 reviews when Off Season was published. One was the Village Voice, which called it violent pornography and said the publisher should be ashamed of himself for publishing this crap. And me and Fangoria saying this guy is genius, and this novel will knock you out of your chair while you're reading it.
Yeah, it's just so many people. So many people are willing to give that 1-star review, especially now with like Amazon. Like, of course, even then, there are a type of people that just like to shit on everything.
Right. And I'm like you, Stanley. My job is to help, not hurt. While my reviews are always honestly how I see it and how I feel about it. I have never left a bad review. Now, I can always find something nice to say, but if it is a negative review, I will tell the author. I really just cannot, and I have had to do that before. I just cannot review this. I just cannot. And normally, I've only had 1 or 2 get angry with me. most of the time they want to know, what I saw that it just wasn't okay or
Yeah.
right. And, and I don't mind telling them, but I always feel bad, you know, um, when I have to tell them that. But I also understand the fact of, it's like anywhere else, you can't fix something if you don't know that something's wrong.
That's true. But that's nice of you, Becky. That's pretty
So
nice of you. I mean, that's better than leaving a 1-star review, you know?
I couldn't do that. I mean, I know how much blood, sweat, and tears go into, writing and publishing and the editing and all the time and effort that gets put into writing. And, I didn't for a long time. I just thought, you write it once and, you send it off to the publisher, they publish it, and there it is. That is not the case at all.
Not at all. And then to think that now with our technology, that people can go and you sweated. People don't know you might have sweated years on that book.
Right.
Gone through incredible hardship, just like you've mentioned how complex it is to write a book. And then people with one, touch of the keystroke put a 1-star review on your book because they didn't like the font of the cover, or they didn't like the cover, or they didn't like how your name was spelled, whatever, and it can be devastating if people go into a slew of those.
You're right. And people don't realize that, or they don't care. It's just a book, But to me, that's not just a book. I don't know. People are crazy. They need to think.
Yeah, people are pretty mean. It's like there's some people that get a thrill from just bashing on people. Like they just want to give that 1 star like it's nothing. Oh, look at this cover. This cover's horrible. It's like, okay, there's some horrible covers. Just fix the cover and all that stuff. But okay,
right. I don't understand that either. But
okay, now I definitely want to ask you this though. Especially, I know you don't want to reveal secrets, and I'm not going to ask you to. But I will have to say, from all the people you've talked to, all the guests, which one is the party animal?
That would probably have been Jack Ketchum, whose real name was Dallas.
Yeah, Mayer. I thought so.
He unfortunately passed away this year from cancer. Yeah. And to this day, I mean, I have the shirt in my closet. I wear one of his shirts. I was staying with him in New York when I would go to New York rather than shelling out the money I didn't have to stay in hotels. I would stay with Dallas. And one time it was raining or something, and my shirt got wet, and he literally went to his closet and pulled one out and said, "Put this on." And I went home with it, and it's hanging in my closet to this day.
Oh, wow.
And I think about it. But Dallas was a player. The old term was the playboy. He loved wine, women, and song, and like every woman I knew wanted to be with him, and every guy I knew who knew Dallas wanted to be him, because that guy, he, a popular writer, critically acclaimed writer, published all over the world, had his books made into movies. Loved what he loved life. Yeah, loved life. Never had any regrets about what he did. Loved women. Loved to drink. Loved to smoke. He just grabbed life by the neck and said, "I'm going to get, everything I can get from you." So it would definitely be that, and one of the kindest. I mean, one of the kindest and sweetest people you can imagine. And that's why I use that term as a real fact, not as a cliche to say. He would literally give you the shirt off his back if it would keep you warm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Literally.
He's a truly, truly great human being. Really.
Man.
Yes.
I had nothing but a lot of love and respect for him. We talked often, and yeah, he's a great man.
I wish I had a chance to meet him in person. That would have been great. Oh, man.
You would have loved him.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think our personalities would mesh well. I think he would get a kick out of the show. You're like, what do you do? What now?
He would have.
Okay. Now the other thing, definitely. Look, it's like 2018. Journalism, it's definitely not where it used to be. I mean, publishing, especially for like magazines and a newspaper, like who's really taking like interviews? Like, I don't know where you would submit it now. I guess Fangoria is still around for now, but it's like, isn't the market? It seems like it's shrinking, right?
Oh, it's shrunk. I would think it's gone. The only magazine that I'm aware of on the newsstands is one called Suspense magazine, which I think is a bi-monthly. And you know, I get a newsletter from them every time the issue's published. And I'm sad to say, when I look at the list of people they interview, now remember this is mystery writers, but they also claim to be promoting horror. I never recognize any of the people who are either writers or interviewees. And Fangoria died years ago, and is supposedly going to come back as a 4 times a year, whatever that's worth, newsstand publication.
Yeah.
But even Fangoria, which was the most successful of them all, I mean, they had international editions and a film division for a while, and, you know, their annual chainsaw conventions. They're gone. And if I was to be a young person trying to get into this field, with the exception of Writer's Digest, I don't know where I would turn to try to sell my articles or my interviews.
Yeah.
And I did so. I was successful with Writer's Digest, but of course they wanted the Anne Rices and the Peter Straubs and, you know, the major people. It's just so, you know, difficult to try to think of how people in the indie horror field are going to get promoted unless it's people like Becky and yourself with this podcast doing so.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we try. I mean, believe it or not, I know the show has some crazy things in the beginning and crazy episodes, but we try, man. We try different things, especially reach audience on YouTube. You know, that's what the whole unboxing thing was for. That's
right.
You know, it's a trending thing, and the kids
to
love
draw
it.
to draw them in and hook them. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully they stay around for the real stuff, though, for the real horror. You know, they want that Slenderman, that creepy pasta stuff, the Bloody Mary, the Blue Baby, the Deep Web unboxing stuff. But you
Blue Baby.
Blue Baby. I'll tell you about that later.
Okay.
That's a thing too. But it's. I mean, you talk to so many interesting people, and it's just like, I wish the indie scene could. I mean, I on Twitter, on Facebook, I see these people. They're like boasting themselves as if they're like the next best thing, but they're obviously not. They're not breaking through the surface if mainstream media doesn't even know who they are. You know. And, and you're right. I don't know which indie author is going to make mainstream. I don't think, is that going to happen?
It's anybody's guess. As I said before with The Martian, by, I believe his name was Andrew Weir, that's the only example I can think of as someone who self-published his own book, a chapter at a time, on his blog, and somehow got so many followers to it that a major publisher picked up the book, and then it went from there. Jeff, the only other person I could think of possibly who's made it into the mainstream recently is Jeff Vandermeer. But Jeff's been around 20 or 30 years doing his thing, doing his short stories, and working with his wife, Anne. to promote the genre and editing and anthologies. But the movie Annihilation with Natalie Portman that came out this past spring, that was based on one of his books.
Yeah.
But
so, like, what about people like Brian Keene and like Jonathan Mayberry? Like,
yeah, two names on my mind that more than deserve widespread recognition. More than deserve.
Agree.
You know.
Agree.
I mean, Jonathan Mayberry
There are
has a Netflix series. Sorry.
Right. I'm sorry.
Oh,
there are a lot that have the actual talent, that have the talent. You know, it's just being able to get them out there. You know, to get people to see them above the sea of the rest of everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've met some that are just wicked talented that just absolutely blew me away with, you know, how they wrote and what they wrote and, you know, I mean, really, you know, we have we have amazing talent, you know, in our midst, and yet we cannot seem to get them out there, and it's so frustrating to me.
Yeah, I mean, you have the Horror Writers Association doing what it can, and you have all these other Facebook groups, you know, promoting, you know, Kindle Horror promotion and Everything Horror promotion group, and I even have my own little Dark Dreamers group where I try to promote the genre with new events and new books titles that are forthcoming. But it's just, you know, what is there, 2 billion people on Facebook, and you sit there and say, why can't I get my name recognized if there's 2 billion people on Facebook and 1.5 billion on Twitter, you know?
Right.
Yeah, you have to come up with some creative ways, some very creative ways. I mean, on Facebook, it's like all those writing groups, usually it turns into just a bunch of self-promotion stuff. Like, everyone's posting about their book. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Who's looking at these posts? Other readers or just other writers wanting their work to be sold?
Right. See, that's part of the problem is you have a group that has 15,000 in it, and 14,000 of them are writers.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's one thing I noticed that some people have said to me is that, well, actually now the buyers are the writers. I'm like, that's a bad state of things then. Because I mean, because I heard conflicting things. How does this sound? Because I was once told by another writer that, hey man, if all what's in your circle are other writers, then you're not really going to sell anything. Is that true?
Well, it's kind of the oddity with blurbs, when people giving you promotional blurbs for your work, and they're basically trying to doing it because they're friends or they're in your writers group. And I look at it, you know, when I'm presented with a book by an author I never heard of, but they have blurbs on their book cover or in their press release, and the blurbs are by other writers I never heard of, and I go, you know, who are these people? It's like the Amazon reviews, the 5-star reviews. You can look at it from the other side of the coin, where people get 5-star reviews of books by authors you never heard of, and the blurbs or reviews, as they're kindly known, are again from people you don't know. And
or sometimes they're from people within the actual book. You know?
Yeah. You know, it's like Catfish, the TV show. You know, is the beautiful blonde you've been corresponding with actually, you know, a 400-pound, you know, albino hunchback in his basement, sending you those.
Don't be ableist now. Don't be ableist. Sorry. That was my thing on the
That
last
was
show.
quite a picture.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. You're one of those in the basement.
Yeah, that was my life.
Not discriminating.
That might have been my life as a
thought.
kid. That's my teenage years.
Yeah.
Oh, shut up.
But I know, like, some listeners now will probably be kind of depressed, especially some writers. But like, oh well, that you gotta stay positive. You can't just give up. It's like, yeah, you do have to stay positive. I mean, if you give up, then okay, nothing's gonna happen. But it's. I don't know. Do you have any?
Well,
advice?
once you give up, it's over.
Yeah.
Once you give up, it's over. As I keep going back to The Martian, there was a guy who believed in his book and believed in his talent and in his craft and got it out to the public and didn't make a penny from it when he was self-publishing it on his blog. And then it became a New York Times bestseller and then a hit movie. So that's my example of, there's always one in that crowd, in that chorus, who's going to break out and be the one singing out of the choir and at the front of all the pews.
Yeah, and
Right.
I've seen examples of indie authors, and now when I'm saying indie, I mean self-publisher, also like through like small publishers, like indie publishers, like small ones. I've seen examples where a few of them, where they're making pretty decent money. I mean, they're paying this bill or that bill. They're probably not making the best living. They're definitely not like Stephen King or anyone else. They're just kind of getting by, and it's helping them out. But they reach an audience. They reach an audience, and they kind of expand it, and they grow, and they find something. They find a crowd. It's just, I mean, they use like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, but they write what the people want, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah. And we've forgotten to mention ebooks so far, which is for a lot of people the only truly viable way to make a living as writers is by publishing ebooks. The idea of having your books published in limited edition hardcovers or mass market paperbacks and finding them down at the corner supermarket, those days are pretty much done and gone. But in terms of ebooks, in theory, your book can live forever.
Yeah.
If it's republished as an ebook.
It can.
Right.
And even bookstores, are struggling. And it's like, people always ask me, "Oh, is this book or this anthology going to be in a bookstore?" I'm like, I mean, it could if we really wanted to, but like, I mean, if it's not selling on Amazon, then I really don't know if anyone's really going to pick it up at a bookstore. I mean, maybe, but
Right. I like to, but depends.
Yeah, they might. I mean, but even Barnes and Noble downsized. How that they had a huge layoff. What was it last year or the year before? Man, that's depressing. Got rid of all their like full-time staff, went all part-time. That's crazy stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a huge thing.
Yeah, we have one local one, and being old school that I am, I'm disappointed that they just recently closed their DVD section. I mean, the idea that DVDs are becoming obsolete, I find shocking.
Oh man,
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah, it is coming. Yeah, I'm old enough. I got a wall full of DVDs. I've got 300 or 400 CDs, and the fact that they're saying CDs are going the way of the 8-track, and it's like, gosh, doesn't anybody want to keep anything as a permanent thing? I mean, we're all writers, and all writers want to have a book. Truly, if they can do it, have a book that they can physically hold in their hand and give it to loved ones, give it to strangers, give it to anybody, and be paid for their their hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that no more DVDs, no more CDs, no more hardcover books, no more paperbacks, except for unless you're a super brand name in the next 10 years, I find not very encouraging.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not.
No, me neither.
When the technology changes, it's just, I don't know. It's like either you stay on top of it or you get lost. And it seems like it gets harder and harder, and the competition gets more intense since everybody can even do it. Let's see, especially with writing. I mean, just with self-publishing tools, everybody has the ability to put their work out there. But you have to, at least you should go through an editor and make sure it's as good as it's going to be. Do all the work you need to do for get the cover and the marketing and all that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And same thing.
Yeah, I mean, writing is so incredibly hard. What most people don't realize is how hard it is emotionally, physically, mentally. And then to think, as many writers have told me, that's only 10% of the work involved in having a successful book.
Right.
And that's where, like, especially now, where the role of a publisher, even these small publishers, in which some of them aren't, well, I'm not going to say names. Some say they'll do stuff, but they don't really do it. And the worst thing you can do, the worst thing you can do is not pay. And that's the worst thing you do is not honor your contractual agreement, which is, that's, you can be taken to court for that. But for me, it's like the point of these small publishers is to help with that, but a lot of them are kind of putting that work on the writer. It's like, well, then what are you doing? Like as a publisher, I feel like a failure if I'm struggling to get a good book sold. I'm like, okay, I need to up it up. I need to find ways to get this book in front of eyeballs, because that's what my job is,
Right.
Yes.
Oh. So
many publishers don't see it that way, though,
Well, we can talk. I'd love to have a debate about like what the role of a publisher is. I'm sure that'd be interesting. Now you spoke with a lot of writers.
Several that would.
Oh, if they're willing to, they can come on and we'll have a debate. And I think the writers would love to hear that.
Yep.
Now you spoke with a lot of writers, but have you interviewed any publishers?
None per se, because the people I've dealt with all over the years, I've been published by Random House and St. Martin's and Avon Books, all names that I trust you easily recognize. So that's who have published my books over the years. I've never, quote unquote, been published by a small publisher, with the exception of Cemetery Dance. And Cemetery Dance was just doing limited editions of my, major trade paperbacks or by a major publisher. So when you say, have I ever interviewed a publisher, I believe you're referring to an individual who is the power behind the throne, so to speak.
Yeah,
I haven't done that.
Okay.
I mean, 20 years ago, there really were no indie, except with the exception of Cemetery Dance. Name me a brand name independent publisher in the horror genre 20 years ago.
Right.
Now, if you could turn back time and interview anyone that you could, if you had that power, who would it be?
Oh, there's several I regret not getting to, for lack of a better term. Two of them would be David J. Scow, and the other one would be Dan Simmons.
Ooh, okay.
Oh yeah.
I admire both of them, and for various reasons, I just never got them locked down to do interviews.
I can see that.
But they're both great writers. And Dan Simmons just had that AMC miniseries, The Terror, based on his novel of the same name. That was broadcast on network television or cable television a few months ago. And that was really, really good.
Yeah, I need to check that one out. I need to check that. Now, I also saw that. Well, I noticed a few things. I noticed that you edited an official Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles treasury. Is that right?
Yes. The odd thing about that, to make a long story short, is I went to college with Peter Laird, one of the two creators of the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
So I was in on that phenomenon from the day it took off, and I actually wrote the first article about it and did the first interviews about it, and wrote some of the Archie comic books featuring the Ninja Turtle characters.
That is so cool.
So that's how that book.
Who's your?
I'm proud to say that. That's how I got my finger in that tiny little $8 billion phenomenon.
Who's your favorite turtle?
Well, I don't have a favorite. My heart goes for April O'Neil, of course.
Oh, of course. But you don't have a favorite?
I'm strange, but I'm not that strange guy.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm pretty strange. I grew up on the cartoons.
Yes, you are.
I didn't read the comics, but I grew up on the cartoons. And Michelangelo, the party guy. That was me.
Okay.
Yeah. This is cool. Cool stuff. Oh man.
It's funny. I just want to mention quickly that one of the characters I created for the Ninja Turtle universe, called Monster X, has since been revived, and you can find, if you just write in Monster X on Google, you'll find that he's now appearing as a plastic figurine from different companies. And
cool.
The new cartoon series from Nickelodeon, I've been told, is going to feature him as one of the villains.
Cool.
Do you get a check?
On that. I wish. No, I sold my copyright years ago to Nickelodeon.
Man, I was about to say, you could take him to court. Do what's his name did on the Friday 13th franchise until.
Oh Lord!
I wrote it a long time ago. I want my money.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was all done legally. I knew what I was doing. Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman were kind enough to let other people create characters for the universe, and then the lawyers came along and said, we have to keep this just to Eastman and Laird as creators. So they offered everybody a nice check, or they said, well, you don't have to take the check, but then we can promise you we'll never use that character again. So even though I don't get a check, it's nice to see that Monster X is still stalking and in the catacombs.
Oh, man,
that's so cool.
That's pretty cool. I mean, do you have I guess you don't really watch the Turtles cartoons, so I guess you don't really have a preference for which version or anything. I know I'm a geek. And I like the 80s. Okay. But I also saw that you have a book, Comic Book Rebels, where you talk with rebels in the comic book industry.
Yeah, minor talents like Frank Miller and Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman. People are struggling to get their voices heard.
Okay. No, were they?
I'm joking, of course.
Yeah, because those guys. So tell me what's going on with the Comic Book Rebels.
Well, that was an idea I had, and I shared the idea with Stephen Bissett, who's an award-winning comic book artist, and it was simply to go with the people who were rebelling against the two big monster companies of Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
And that included basically the independents. So it'd be like if there was a book about filmmakers, it would be a book composed of filmmakers who weren't working for the studio system, but were making their own movies outside of it.
Yeah.
So that was the basic concept, and Steve Bissett is in the process of revising it for ebook publication, which will hopefully come to sooner rather than later.
Well, that's actually pretty relevant this day and age, especially now with the current movement. I don't know if you know about Comicsgate, but it's like another. I mean, it's like these people are they're leaving the big companies. They're leaving Marvel and DC. They want to do their own thing. They want to keep comics a certain way, or they have an idea about this idea, that idea, and they're making money doing it, making pretty good money. Actually, some of them are making more than, or selling more copies than the mainstream comics. So it's like, oh man, DC and Marvel must be feeling it. I mean, they have to be worried. Yeah. It makes me wonder how it was then in that time, like when you were working with.
It was all work for hire.
Okay.
It was all work for hire.
Okay.
I mean, that's a whole other. That's another interview show. Trust me. Go into the comic book industry.
Man, might have to dig into that for a whole Comicsgate thing. Well, are you familiar with that, by the way?
Not really, no.
Okay. No. Yeah, I mean, some people say it's controversial. It's like, when you dig into it, it's kind of like, okay, you guys, I mean, some people just don't want, like, politics in comics, so they just don't want that stuff in there. So they just want to keep comics, just take out the, virtue signaling, political stuff, and just have Captain America kick some ass, or just have Wolverine kick some ass. I don't need to hear. Oh, by the way, remember to vote, or remember do this, do that. And it's like, oh, okay, Oh man. Anyway, do you have a favorite horror film?
Oh gosh, maybe. Aliens is right up there. I probably have more like a top 10 than a favorite, but the Alien franchise I've always deeply enjoyed. And I don't collect DVDs per se, even though I have a wall full of them. But I do have all the Alien movies and the Alien versus Predator movies. I had a chance to interview H.R. Giger once upon a time over the phone, and always admired his work, and so that's right up there.
I think that's the first horror movie I ever remember seeing.
What, Alien?
I sat on the floor in between my dad's feet with a blanket over my head. And it was on TV.
I saw it the opening weekend in 78, 79, and people after the chest burster scene, people were walking out of the theater, and I said, great, this is my kind of movie. Finally a movie that I've always heard of people walking out of theaters, but I'd never actually seen it in real life until the original Alien.
And that's cool. Man, that was so great to experience it like that. Shit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just remember it being a rental. It was a VHS, and I wasn't supposed to be watching it. I wasn't supposed to be in the room, but I was there.
Yeah, I wasn't either, but Dad let me. Mom was like, Mom wasn't at home.
It was terrifying, man. The xenomorph, just the way it looked, and the corridors and all that. It's like, oh shit, this freaky looking thing. Oh man. And now when I look back at it, it's like, that's pretty intense, because where are you gonna go? I mean, it's like you take a slasher flick, but you kind of put it in space. You make a monster and be like, good luck.
Yeah.
Odds are against you. Man. Ooh, and that's a good pick. Usually people go like Exorcist, but Alien's good. I think mine would have to be, I think I said it before, mine's like the Halloween series, which, by the way, I haven't seen the new Halloween. Have you seen it, Becky? Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, but Chris Miller saw it the other day and said it was really good. He highly recommends it.
Okay.
And he recommended Heredity to me, and that was really good. That one scared the shit out of me. Have you seen that, Stanley?
No, I haven't, but I plan to. It's on my list because it's gotten so many good reviews that
you'll love it.
On my queue on pay-per-view. Yeah, I plan to see it, and
I want to know what you think of it after you watch it. I want to know what you think of it, please.
I saw A Quiet Place this summer. I don't know if you folks saw that.
Oh, I did.
Mm-hmm.
That was fantastic.
Yes. The birth scene. Yes. That birth scene, man, that got me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I saw it in one of those brand new super deluxe XD theaters from Rave Cinemas or
wow.
And it's where they've got the giant screen, wraparound screen, and they've got like 20 speakers on the walls, so that
my Lord,
when something happens, it shakes you out of your seat. I just saw Venom in one of those, and when the spaceship crashed, the chairs literally shook in the theater from the crash. But when you saw A Quiet Place, as you know, what's so wonderful about that movie is that it's so quiet that when a pin does drop on the floor, it's coming through 20 speakers, and everybody in the theater is heading towards the ceiling because it's such an intense sensation after having quiet.
Yeah,
running through.
I like the way they did that. That definitely was that's definitely a strong feature of that movie, a strong characteristic of it. Oh man. It's just, no, I don't want to give it away, the spoilers, but it's just like, man, that girl, it's like, oh my God, like, it's like, if you just look back, if you could just do it over again, do it better. It's like, because that girl, she made so many mistakes. It's like, oh my God. It's like, it's like, if she hadn't give the toy back to the kid, it just,
everything would have been different.
Yeah. It's like, oh man.
The last movie that I went to, that I was allowed to go see in the theater, was The Hills Have Eyes, the remake.
Okay.
And then I was told that I couldn't go to the movies anymore.
What were you doing? Were you throwing popcorn at people?
No.
Were you screaming?
Man, I had never seen the original one.
Oh.
Okay. And a friend of mine talked me into going, and where that hillbilly guy pops around the corner of the back of the camper and scares the girl. Well, it scared the shit out of me, and I screamed, "Oh shit!" right in the middle of the movie.
Well, that's kind of this podcast. So what's wrong with shit? You can't go to the theater. You can't. Oh,
well, nothing. But I mean, everybody in the theater laughed.
Oh.
They all tickled at me. Got tickled at me because I mean, I was not quiet when I said it. I mean, yeah, it was funny.
Oh man.
And then,
like, I say I give you permission. You can go back to the theater because it's like now you kind of hear that.
But you want to go?
I'll go with you. I'll go. It'd be great. It'd be great, man. It was good. Oh man.
I'll go with you and Stanley. Well, I'll go see a scary movie.
We can make that happen.
That would be fun.
There's times when I go see a movie and the audience is loud. They're just ranting and just cheering it on. It's like, okay, I guess we're doing this now. We're doing commentary with it.
Oh, really? Okay. I've never been to a theater like that before when somebody did that.
And it happens. It happens. It's the last time that happened with me was like probably one of the Saw movies, but that's kind of to be expected. And that's during the kills. Everyone's just like, oh fuck yeah, oh you're gonna get it, oh she ain't gonna make it, stuff like that. That usually happens. Oh man. Well, we are coming towards the end here. Stanley, let me see if we can say your last name right again. Wiater. Did I do that?
You got it. Oh.
Yay! Yeah. He did it. I'm so proud.
Thank you, Stanley Wiater. I mean, Stanley Wiater. Okay. Stanley Wiater. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you. It's great having you. You talk to so many great people. Man, we could take your brain and go into the little details about how these people were. But then I just feel like we'd be talking about them behind their back. You know, be like, oh, what was Stephen King?
Yeah,
like?
We're not doing that.
You know, I feel all grimy. Be like, is this like a tabloid thing? No.
No.
But it was great having you.
But thank you for being here.
Oh, definitely.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's no problem.
Anytime, come back. Promise you'll come back?
As long as you call me Stanley Wiater, I will come back.
Stanley Wiater.
Oh, you know I will.
We got you. All right, sir. You take it easy.
Thank
you. Too,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.